Let's talk further about the country's load-shedding crisis and indeed these nuclear energy expansion plans. Bring in Stellenbosch University Centre for Renewable and Sustainable Energy Studies Chief Engineer Monique le Roux. Monique, a very good evening to you. Good to have your time. So 2,500 megawatts of nuclear energy is what the Minister is looking to procure in the next while. Is this the shot in the arm that our energy mix desperately needs at the moment?
Hi, Timakile. Yes, thank you. I don't think the procurement of new nuclear power is a problem per se, and it could be a good solution in the long term. We know the government has fallen short in the past where they haven't planned new capacity for many years, and that's why we're sitting with the power crisis at the moment. And with record levels of load shedding year on year, I think every South African can appreciate that we desperately need generation to come online. So I think in that sense, it's a good move to procure new power, especially base load power that is dispatchable, and of the base load options like coal, diesel and gas, nuclear is the cleanest and the most sustainable. So I think in that sense it's also a good move. But I think where there are question marks arising is due to the fact that it's based on the old IRP, the IRP 2019, which is the energy roadmap for the country, and which hasn't been updated since 2019. So a lot of people are saying that the assumptions and inputs that we're putting to that model is no longer applicable, and we desperately need a new model so that we can understand what the least cost procurement strategy for South Africa is.
What are the potential implications of that very issue? Because in South Africa, we know that especially with these energy projects, when you look at Medupi and Kusile, we've run notoriously late and over budget in their construction. The fact that we're relying on a 2019 plan, does that heighten the risk of a repeat of that scenario where timelines are not met and the budget basically is not enough?
Yes, absolutely. I think when you look at big build projects like nuclear and coal, specifically with the lessons that were learned or not learned with Medupi and Kusile, the same questions remain with nuclear. And nuclear's build price very much hinges on the project being done in time and not having cost overruns, because then your project cost just shoots up. So I think that's where a lot of people have concerns around how that would be executed in South Africa, and then specifically how it would be procured. The Minister himself said last time that it was mired in controversy, and there were a lot of questions around how it was done and possible corruption that came into play with the previous process. So I think if they would really need this time to run an open and transparent process so that South Africans have got confidence in the fact that they're getting the absolute best value for money, and that there's not money being siphoned off on the side due to corruption.
And realistically, Monique, how much can we expect the country to have to spend on this to make it a success?
It's difficult to say. The Minister also, there were questions around how it would be procured, whether it would be big power stations or whether they would look at modular nuclear power stations, which is something that's being investigated and sort of touted internationally as a new solution, because then you're looking at smaller scale stations, for example, 100 megawatts and lower, which can be built quicker, presumably, but can be scaled and can probably be done in a shorter space of time. Where if you look at a big nuclear power station like we've got at Koeberg, which is 1,000 megawatt units, then you're looking at longer timelines, and then your cost is going up. The Minister mentioned pricing of around 60 cents per kilowatt hour today, which we think is a little bit conservative, but the analysis and studies that we've done have shown that that price can really vary a lot based on a lot of variables that go into, and as I say, one of the biggest ones are whether that project can be done on time and on budget. So that's your biggest determining factor. But as I've also mentioned, we really need an updated IRP which takes all these factors into account so that we can see what is the best plan for South Africa going forward.
We touched on the Koeberg nuclear station a short time ago. We know it's had its fair share of problems. For example, it's not fully functional at the moment, and there's been some reporting, some opinion pieces, in fact, out, or one in particular that was out recently, raising concerns about the structural integrity, possibly. I wonder what can be gleaned from the Koeberg experience as an example of what not to do with this upcoming work with nuclear.
Exactly. I think a lot of people are trying to push government and Eskom specifically to be more transparent. I think the report that was released on nuclear, there were a lot of concerns because most of the report and most of the important information in that report was redacted. And that once again doesn't, Eskom and government are not doing themselves any favors because it's not winning over public confidence in their process, in what needs to be done going forward. So I think the biggest lesson from a public point of view would be transparency going forward into these projects.
And in terms of skills, what level of skill, what sort and level of skill will be needed, and how much of that sort of skill set already exists in the country, and is there enough supply?
I think that is an important question and something that government and Eskom would have to think about deeply because with the only nuclear power station in Africa is Koeberg, and we've lost a lot of, Eskom has lost a lot of skills in recent years. It's been a big complaint about them. The Energy Minister and Eskom a while ago said that they're hemorrhaging skills, and I think that is an appropriate term to use for the amount of skills that they've lost, specifically skilled workers, specifically in the nuclear industry, where people have gone overseas with better opportunities. So I think that's something that definitely would need to be developed. And I think for a build program, they'd probably largely rely on another country to get those skills into to build those programs, to build those projects like France, South Korea, Russia.
Monique le Roux, Chief Engineer with Stellenbosch University. Good to have your time. Thank you.